Tune into the Kate Daly Show. Once you're awake, it's hard to go back to sheep. The Kate Daly Show starts now.
Israel is bombing apartment blocks in Beirut, Lebanon. You know what the name of the military operation was? Eternal Darkness. Israel named this operation, killing hundreds of civilians in Lebanon, mostly in Beirut, Eternal Darkness. Because, like, why even pretend anymore? Eternal darkness, by the way, is mentioned extensively in the New Testament. It's a euphemism for hell.
Interesting. Okay. We have a lot to talk about, and that was Tucker Carlson. I know you know the voice, and welcome to the Kate Daly Show, by the way. So glad that you're listening in, and of course, I know everyone's trying to get a dose of truth. You know, where's the truth? And I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm fighting this fight with you as well. So I really appreciate you. I have Greg Carpenter on with me. I call him my ex-NSA guy. I'm sure he loves that. I say with sarcasm. And I have to say that, you know, Greg's been coming on the show for like a decade. I think I met you like a decade ago, and over a decade ago, probably now. And back when I was on the Fox News channel, and it was so fascinating to meet you. And you wrote a book called Reverse Deception, and it was quite intriguing. And it was all about kind of the state of where things were at, and how to sort of unwind that ball. And I really appreciated that. I've had you on ever since. You're also friends with Suzanne Sherman, the attorney we have on all the time too. And so I've always appreciated you coming on. You had a kind of a special role in government. It's kind of interesting. I want you to at least give your bio for a second, Greg, and then also mention the book, where they can get that book. So I found that very intriguing book, and it was a good read. And so since then, you've been on the show talking about some pretty controversial things. We're going to talk about some things that were just declassified, and it's always a good conversation. I do want you to join in, though, into this conversation, because I think it's going to be really important today, and you can ask Greg questions, and excited to have you. And so welcome to the show, Greg Carpenter.
Well, thank you so much, Kate. Great to be back again. Yeah, I'm Greg. I'm the ex-NSA guy. I spent 27 years in the military. I'll own that. I'll own it. I spent 27 years in the military, civil service, another 10 years or so. I've been basically working strategic security, intelligence operations for about 40 years or so, everything from nuclear command and control all the way down to tactical military operations everywhere around the world. The book, Reverse Deception, you can pick it up on Amazon if you'd like. It's gone through a recent research after the last hacking conference that I went to. A lot of people were asking about it again. It's the book that never dies. It's kind of interesting. It was published in 2012, but 2011, excuse me. But we literally have gone through these surges where McGraw-Hill comes back to us and says, "Hey, we're going to publish some more of these." And we're like, well, okay, I could use that $12.39 every year. That comes in handy for my royalties. So I enjoy that.
Thanks. I'm so glad. All right. So, you know, that was a clip about Israel. Tucker's been very vocal right now. It seems like everyone on our conservative side is mentioning Trump's mental health and the 25th Amendment and what's going on in Iran, what happened, you know, what's been happening in the Middle East. And yesterday I made a comment. I still stand by that comment. I did make a prediction on Monday that nothing would happen at 8 o'clock at night, that night, or Tuesday night, I think it was. And so now we're in a 2-week ceasefire. And I said there'll be way more back and forth. They'll draw this thing out for quite a while, which I still think they will do. And so what is the purpose of it? Why the timing of it? And so these are kind of questions I have for you. And then also I made a comment that Trump's first term, there was a huge distraction going on with Russiagate. And we all know that was full of lies. I mean, it was just, there was no basis or foundation for impeachment. But yet again, we kept hearing for 3 solid years. It was nothing but that in the newscasts. And now we're hearing about mental health. Now this is the new debate and so forth. So this is going to get kind of interesting, and I wanted to get your comment on that.
Sure. I think any good politician who is going for the real prize, which is American independence, is going to be challenged by both sides.
Mm-hmm.
You literally have people in the Republican Party, Lindsey Graham, just saying, it's like, oh, we have to have an investigation. Wait a minute, Trump stopped. Why did he stop? This is crazy. And then on the other side, you have Netanyahu. I mean, to Tucker Carlson's point, Netanyahu's like, no, don't stop bombing them. Keep bombing them. Both sides, including, well, I'd say every side, is really against peace. You look back, previous to 40 years ago, 50 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
how were there wars and fights in the Middle East? Only when the Arabs attacked the Israelis. That only happened every few years or so. And for a very, very long period of time, there were very, very few wars. It's not the place where there are historical evidence for lots of wars, ongoing wars. What we do see, like back in '78 when Carter got Israel and Egypt to the table, both sides did not want peace. And Carter kept forcing them because that's what America does, is we negotiate, we talk to people, and we basically try to barter peace. But it's hard because in Iran specifically, and this goes to what you were talking about before a little bit, some of that recently declassified and information that's available at the National Security Archives. If anybody wants to go there, George Mason University runs the declassified National Security Archives. And you find the information there on how, well, we know after World War I, England and France divided up the Middle East, and they divided it how they wanted it. And you have the Shia Crescent, and you have different political groups and different cultural groups put into different positions. And they're put into countries like Iraq that really didn't exist before. It wasn't a country. We made it a country. And it's all linked to basically British petroleum opportunities and British banking that goes back to 1694, which is incredible and amazing. But usury was found in the West in 1694 when the Bank of England was created and became the linchpin on how England used passive aggressive techniques to make money. Fast forward a couple hundred years, and now you're looking at the Middle East, and England has oil interests. They made deals with all of the Emirates that they would only sell to England, and England was getting rich off of that, and they never wanted to release any of that. So they held on to control. And since World War II, what war have we gotten into that Britain didn't want us to get into? Nothing. It was all at the direction of Britain and the British, I would say, monarchy or empire. We'll call it empire. So we're really dealing with a situation where we've been fighting Britain for so many years, which is one of the reasons why the Brits told us we couldn't use Diego Garcia. It's because the Brits realized that we're cutting them out of their scam that they're running. And it's kind of an amazing thing that we're standing up to them. But Iran, if you look at Iran's official website, they said they welcome the 2-week ceasefire. They welcome the opportunity to find peace. It was the British Empire that condemned Iran to a life of living in the shadows, basically. And don't forget, it was the United States who let the Ayatollah take control in Iran in the first place. That was us. And we did it because the Brits asked us to. We were friends with Saddam Hussein, and Saddam had him locked up in prison. Yeah. And it was at the time of the revolutions. And we told, the Brits said, hey, if you let him go, it's better than communism. If we have an Islamic extremist government, it's better than communism. And we fought back a bit, and we didn't want to go with that. And then we eventually went with that.
Well, we put in Khomeini. That he was a CIA asset. He was living in France. We put in the Shah. We backed Iraq's leader, Saddam Hussein, and then flipped. So we've installed with color revolutions, and then we've flipped on people too when they don't do the bidding that we want them to, or we need to use them in order to do what maybe some of the projects include. But what's interesting is that's never happened with Israel, has it?
No. Even after they blew up the Liberty,
Yeah.
USS Liberty, we still turned a blind eye and we let them do it. I was running counterintelligence operations up in New York, New Jersey, and we caught 2 Israeli spies in Picatinny Arsenal. And the post Jackson Pollock, oh my gosh, Pollard incident where he was spying for Israel. No Israeli spies have found their day in court. They've just kind of like skedaddled out the back door and gotten into prisoner exchanges. So the guys that we caught were just skedaddled back out.
Right.
And it's interesting, the Iran-Iraq, the history of Iran-Iraq and how we got to where we're at is really, it's crazy. But one of the things that, set it up in such a way that it became toxic was that when Saddam took over and was consolidating power, he went into that big theater and he had everybody in there and he started calling out the names of all these guys that were bad guys, right? He said, and he took them out and he shot them all. Well, guess where he got that list from? The CIA. He didn't even ask.
They're always present.
He didn't even ask. And they said, you know what? This guy's pretty ruthless and he has no morals and no scruples. We can work with him.
It's getting interesting. Why do you think the timing of this? Because the timing seemed really off. I went through a whole, I play a clip of the last 40 years, all the way back to the 70s of basically, Iran is 2 weeks away from getting a nuke for 40. That's a long time being 2 weeks away, 45 years. And then also, Iran is our bad guy. Iran is doing this. Iran is doing that. But I feel like we created the bad guy. We created the controlled opposition to be the bad guy. So what is your take on the timing? What is your take on the timing of all this?
The Brits are the ones that created the Russian threat, which is interesting. And that happened, after the Crimean War. That's Russia pulled back and they became very introspective. They became, they were called Western files, or people that were afraid of the West anymore. And they looked internal, much like we would like to do, and like China had done for years, to have an industrial base and create and build things themselves. And they didn't trust the West because the West had flipped on them so many times and lied to them and left them hang out to dry. So Britain created the Russian threat back then in 1856. And then again, with other countries, they've done the same thing. The timing for this is really interesting in that it has to be done and completed. And you have to have enough time for the midterms to come through because of the manipulation that's happening here.
Right.
I don't want to be sound a little crazy, but
it's okay.
The Council on Foreign Relations. Do you know why they were created in the first place? They were created to pursue British interests, British banking interests in the state. That's what the CFR was created for.
The Rothschilds banking. Yes. Okay.
Right. And that was their long-term plan. So I have to go back to jolly old England, sticking a thorn in our side and kind of puppeting us around and saying, hey, if you do this, we'll take care of you. Think about where some of the most problematic banks in the world are. The Cayman Islands. British protectorate.
Yeah, you're right.
It's under the Bank of England.
Yeah. Interesting.
1/4 of all drug money goes through the Bank of England.
Didn't they also have the royal family, the Christian royal family of Russia annihilated? Okay.
Air quotes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
So I'm just very I'm not as happy on the Five Eyes relationship like it used to be about 30 years ago, when I
Mm,
thought that the U.S. and the U.K. and Australia and Canada and New
mm,
Zealand, we were all thinking along the same lines. But there's a
yeah.
reason why we split.
Yeah, there's a reason why we split. And maybe, still to this day, our lawyers that take the bar, there's still the component of the pledging of allegiance to the British. So I'm going to guess that even though we lost, or not, we won, I'm sorry, and they lost, that there was always way more of a banking secret component happening the entire time
Sure.
that guided and directed the deep state, because I don't think the deep state has any allegiance to any particular country. It's to money and power. So it doesn't matter what country has what. I think it's just that allegiance. And so that's why I think we developed, I'm going to say that in air quotes, the bad guys, which I think people
Yeah.
have a really hard time with me saying, because they're so entrenched into, and even a lot of our Christian base takes the scriptures and decides that certain places in the scriptures have to be bad guys, Russia, Iran, or China. And I'm thinking, no, I think we actually secretly own their governments and have for a long time and direct the affairs. Even with China, we were paying them in the early 1900s for welfare. We were paying them. We were taking their people over to our country and allowing them to have jobs. And then we rose their population numbers to a number that even people didn't even believe back then. And so
Right.
there's always been a lot of lying. Sorry, a lot of.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's so, you're so right about that, Kate. If you go to the State Department and look at the State Department numbers,
Uh-huh.
you can see that we funded the Soviet Union all the way through the stinking Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
Up until just a few years ago, we were
Yes.
giving them money every year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that just doesn't happen because, we're benevolent people.
Right.
There's a hook in there. There's something going on.
You're
And,
right.
we don't get to the point where we have, I think we're at 38.99 trillion as of a week ago in debt.
Ouch.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not bad. But when you don't intend to repay it,
Mm-hmm.
it's a liability, but
Yeah.
it's also an asset on your balance sheet.
Right. No, that's true. Yeah.
And
Okay.
in that way,
Mm-hmm.
the directed debt system that we live in
Mm-hmm.
is the new slavery.
You're right. You're absolutely right on that. And turning us into a region without us seeing it is one of, I think, the deep state big agendas is turning us into a region. I think that's why we have all the chatter about Greenland and Cuba and us and Mexico and Canada constantly for the last year is this agenda by the deep state. I think the White House is very controlled by the deep state. I don't think they took a break in this term. I think they're heavy at work. A lot of people don't agree with that. It's okay. But that 100%, that's how I feel. But it's interesting to watch the timing. We have this horrible economy right now, and people are having trouble making it, even with two incomes. And so
Mhm.
the economy is staying this way. It's not getting fixed. And I know that a lot of people thought this term would bring a fix, right? Because you always realize that when a Democrat president is in, you're going to have a horrible economy and a lot more trans happening and a lot more of these culture things going on. Then when we put in a Republican president, it's usually about war, usually about like putting things in like our Patriot Act, things like this. We have a lot of that going on. And I don't think at this time is any different. So we have this horrible economy and everything's being blamed on the economy, right? So we have only 10% of our oil coming through the Strait. So there's no reason to have all this jacked up prices. Europe, I said yesterday, again and again, they get zero actually since 2020 through the Strait. So we're making a big deal about the Strait. So what did you notice going into this? I don't even know what to call it. Are we at war? Is it a skirmish? What the hell is it? And why?
Yeah.
Why was Trump why was he told, because I do believe they get orders, you can disagree, I'm fine with that, but why was he told to do this now? Is it to have a reason for this horrible economy to stay? I don't know, you tell me. I'm just guessing.
I think what we're experiencing right now are growing birth pains and growing pains out of a dependency model into an independent model of economy. We've been dependent, and interdependent with the EU and England and everybody else for so long. We've been funding them,
Yeah.
and we're going through this
Right.
iteration now where we're breaking free from all of those bindings and chains that we were in before into the United States, who we were supposed to be over 100 years ago, who we were for a long time before we had people like William Jennings Bryan come in and, start to degrade our gold standard to a silver standard and all those other things that happened.
Right.
So we're going through a big change right now. And I think that it's a very strategic thing that's happening. When I look at Greenland, when I look at Venezuela, when I look at Iran, I see Trump zeroing in on natural resources that are only available in certain areas, and there are abundance in other places. And then I see him choking out the Straits of Hormuz with this attack. It literally puts us, if we're controlling everything from Greenland down through Venezuela, we're controlling the majority of the world's oil now. We're not dependent, and we're not waiting on OPEC or the Middle East to make a decision.
So we have a caller, but I also want to say it's funny that we're not concentrating on USA resources, because we have so much here that we don't know.
No, it is not funny at all. It is planned that way.
Okay.
You're not going to use your resources. Let me just the thought real quick.
Yeah.
We're not using our resources until we use everybody else's resources first.
Okay. Interesting thought. All right. So, caller, go right ahead. Welcome.
Oh, okay. Hi, Kate.
Hi there.
You mentioned earlier, why is Trump doing this at this point? And I think the answer comes if you read a few books, and one of them I'm thinking of is The Fourth Turning.
The Fourth
by
Turning.
Strauss and Howe.
Yes, we've talked about that a lot on the show.
And I tell you what, we're in the fourth turning.
Okay. Yeah.
And whether he likes it or not, that may be completely out of his control. And I think that's what we have to understand. We're going through a fundamental transformation of not Barack Obama's fundamental transformation, but a fundamental transformation. Stage in our economy's history. So
you take care of the dogs, and I'll have Greg comment on that. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the call. The line is live, by the way. Not too many shows do this live, but 435-680-2503. The number's on the bottom of the screen if you're watching live. You can text in a comment, or you can call in. All right, go ahead, Greg. Thoughts?
Well, I want you to know that all of my wife's dogs are outside taking a nap right now. We planned it that way. They had dinner and they're sleeping right now.
Love it.
But you can never know what they're going to do. That's for sure. So I don't know so much that it's planned or directed by any one group in any one way. I remember reading China Debates Future Security Environment, 2000, National Defense University Press, Michael Pillsbury. And Dr. Pillsbury is a professor at the university there. And he took, it was a collection of information that was gleaned from speeches of high-ranking people in the People's Liberation Army and the Chinese government. And their determination was that by 2032, and correct me if you think this sounds a little crazy, but by 2032, the United States would be reduced to a regional power in parity with China and Russia and England, and mostly the EU and England, but separate. They were separate, which was interesting that they knew that breakup was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so there's been several additional books that I've read that talk about, us being a regional power and us going through a transformation during this period of time.
Yeah.
And the one thing that was interesting about the Chinese book was that it spoke of America in the sense that it destroyed itself from the inside. It allowed everything to come in that was bad and kept out everything that was good, in an effort to reach parity with China and everybody else.
Right.
So going back to the caller's point, is that we're choosing to bring in the things that will destroy us and push us through a transformation.
Or maybe not even choosing, but I think the deep state's very good at opening our borders and keeping them open, never having built a wall, never having had a single solution to anything. And the parties are there to just provide debate over it for decades while we just have this flow of people coming in. So really by design, right?
Right. It's just the opportunity to do a misdirection from what's really important. And have you talk about whatever else is going on. We could talk about the color of my hair, right? But that's not going to solve the economy.
Yes, that's why the parties are there, to discuss and debate and forever have drama. It's like a never-ending Days of Our Lives soap opera. It never comes to any conclusion. Everyone's got drama. The drama surfaces, and that's the only thing we ever get to read about, but we all get absorbed into it. And it's a really good brainwashing technique. You talked about our resources, and one thing that I've noticed, because I'll take this caller too, but one thing I have noticed since when they lied to us in the 70s, and I don't think we had a shortage at all, but we were lined up at the pump based on the numbers of our license plates to get gas every other day. Yeah, you remember that, right? So in an event to lie to us, I remember at the time, the person, there was a person in government that was going out and they were saying, hello, we have infinite resources here. Infinite resources. Yeah. Why in the world are we pretending that we only get our oil from a certain place? And then on top of that, we export, right? So going through these other countries to take their resources, I don't know if that makes sense to me, because I know that we are rich in resources, but it never gets talked about, as if we have a dependency on everybody else, but we don't own up to the fact that we are rich with resources here. We never talk about, heaven forbid we ever talk about the Antarctica and the resources there and the countries that get to control it and all the people that are never allowed down there, which is very strange. We've had some conversation about that, Greg and I, but I'm going to take the caller and then address kind of what I said. But go ahead, caller.
Hey,
hello?
Hey, Greg.
There you go.
I'm getting an echo.
Yeah, you probably will for a moment. Just go ahead.
Okay. Well, I used to live in Texas back in the 70s, and I remember friends getting oil wells for their 16th birthday as opposed to the Trans Am. And
wow,
they all knew that when the oil was pumped down to where they could start sucking air, they just capped them, and they would come back 10 years later, and voila, they're full, because it's abiotic. It's a naturally occurring phenomenon. They're not really sure how, but the wells refill themselves. It's not dinosaurs. But my question to your guest is that you mentioned communism. Right now, we've got corporations developing our natural resources and paying the government pennies per barrel, and we're buying gasoline at dollars per gallon. Why would, if we nationalize our natural resource, we developed it, we paid companies to locate it, drill wells, build refineries, but we go to work there, we distribute our own natural resource at cost, which would, with the gas tax, be about $1 a gallon. And that way we benefit from our resource. And since all of the oil going out of Alaska is going down, except for a few tankers to up there around Whidbey Island, Washington, Port Aransas, that refinery there, it all goes to Japan. Why not us just keep our natural resource and we develop it and we consume it and screw the corporations? Why is that called communism?
Okay, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. What do you think, Greg?
Great question. Great point. I would have loved to have gotten an oil well for my 16th birthday.
Ditto.
But us in Brooklyn, we don't have oil wells in Brooklyn.
I actually know somebody that got an oil well as a gift, but go ahead. I do. Anyway, state of Utah. Utah's got a lot of oil too. Go ahead.
So
that's why 70% of it's owned by the government, by the feds. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. You're not allowed to have your state.
We're not allowed to have our land.
No, that's it. It's yours on paper.
Yeah.
So part of what we're talking about is conservation of resources. And the resources, I'm going to say something that you're probably not going to like, folks, but the resources that are here in the States that are being extracted from the ground or being developed by corporations are being developed for the government and not for you.
Right.
And you're not going to see a dip in prices in gas. It's like having a hurricane and all of the hotel prices go up in other locations because they're taking advantage of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing you're seeing with gasoline right now. The oil, the natural resources, anything else that you can think of that would be important, that would help make your life better, goes into the strategic reserves, and it goes into our strategic stockpile. The national strategic stockpile is like for medications, and we rotate in and out different medications. If you notice, during COVID, we never deployed one of those units to help people, but that's okay. But the rest of the strategic stockpile is taken, and everything is stored, and it's stored in different locations. It's stored underground. It's stored in places that you wouldn't think to be looking. And it's not for you. It's for the continuity of government program. It's for when we have a bad day, when we get nuked or something, that your leaders and your elected officials and people that are deemed important.
Sorry, but go ahead.
Will have, that's why I said leaders. Your courts, not your leaders, your courts.
Our bootlickers. Yes.
Oh, even better. I like that. Yeah. But they get to live and you get to die. And they'll have resources that are going to be available to them and not to you. Because you're going to be stuck on the surface here. If nukes go off, you're stuck on the surface, you're going to die. Bottom line. Them, they're going to be underground. They have these beautiful elaborate systems set up that are just amazing. And they're going to have, it's just amazing. You're going to see it's amazing. And they're going to have enough natural resources to last them until the radiation cloud goes away and the earth is able to recover.
Yeah.
And they have everything from incinerators for bodies to stored food, freeze-dried fuels, everything you can think of are all stored, and it's waiting for them, not for us.
Wasn't it interesting, though, when we got the headlines that said that we hardly had any reserve? That was in Biden when King Dingling was in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a whole. Have you ever heard of a guy named Sefton Delmer by chance? Okay. Sefton Delmer is an icon of the black propaganda world. And he was an amazing guy. And he basically said, by any means, he was a reporter. And he was, during World War II, he was one of the leaders who created some of the material that was used in Nuremberg to convict some of the Germans. It was actually created by the Brits and identified as German stuff and used to convict the Germans. Now, they were bad people anyways, but he was going to make sure that they went south for the winter. And his job during World War II was to create all of this propaganda that looked like it came from one side, but it actually came from the other side to support that side. So I'm familiar with that, but this guy, if you ever get a chance to get his book, you could probably get it for like $1,000 off of Amazon or something, because it's no longer printed, and it won't be printed because the information in there is so damning to the English system.
What's his name?
What they were doing and how they were doing it. Sefton Delmer, Seftondelmer.
Okay. Sefton Delmer. Very interesting. LB had a comment in Texas. The Texas Railroad Commission is in charge of the oil wells. The railroad's in charge of the oil wells. You know, what the hell do they know about the oil wells? You can go to their site and see them celebrate how many wells they cap with concrete. That's interesting.
I know. It's the same reason why, the interstate highway system is part of the Department of War.
Yeah.
It's loaned to the Department of Transportation, but it's part of the Department of War.
Things we'll never understand, but we do, which is so sad because we don't want to, because of what it means. I swear sometimes that should be the theme of the show every day, because I think it's really hard for people to grasp how much control there is over things. And when at the advent of the CIA and the United Nations, we started developing these takeovers, these, and it happened before that. And you even wrote a book on the Constitution, which I want you to let people know is coming out. But it really got heavy since the 40s. World War II was a game changer in global power, and then all of a sudden you had. I even watched a show. This was really interesting, but I was watching the Waltons. I know. I don't even, it just came on. I was doing something else, and they were talking in a glorious way about what was the first thing that came out before United Nations? What was it called? Oh gosh,
the League of Nations.
League of Nations, yeah, and they were promoting it heavily on the wall. Now I like the Waltons because I think it's really good, clean TV for kids to watch.
Sure,
but it was very interesting how they were promoting and idolizing the League of Nations on there. And I thought ever since this has happened, we have been more color revolutions, more death, more war than we ever thought would come our way. It's just done in a way that is not approved by Congress, but approved by the CIA.
Sure. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's a rich man's game, and you're not invited to the table. It's
yes.
We would joke around and call it the League of Extraordinary Nations.
Yeah,
and
yes.
it goes back to the group of 77 back during at the end of World War II. 77 nations were identified as economically underdeveloped, and they needed assistance. So the concept was to funnel money into those systems and into those countries. And you can go to 77.org, I think it is their website. And basically you could see those 77 nations, which has turned into 123 nations now, because countries like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, are developing nations. They need our help to function.
There were, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, it's confusing to me because we regularly give handouts. But
handouts for favorite.
If you go to Yosemite, what's the sign say? Don't feed the bears. Why?
Yeah.
Because they'll become dependent on the free handout. Well, guess what we've done? Same thing.
We fund almost every single country.
We fund so even indirectly, we even fund North Korea.
Yes,
and we funded Iran for years.
Oh, we've controlled their government for years. We got Khomeini in there. No one even wanted. No one. Their eyeballs weren't even on Khomeini. He wasn't even living in Iran when
he was in. Yeah, he was. Yeah, and then he was in jail, and Saddam had him for a while, and he was in a couple places. So, well, it's like Yasser Arafat. Right.
Yeah.
He's an Egyptian. He's not even a Palestinian.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, Israel used Yasser as an excuse to develop their own controlled opposition, which was Hamas. Right. Ron Paul.
Right.
Talked about
have an enemy.
I had Ron Paul on the show, and he was talking about that because he was saying, it was basically. They tried to make it about Yasser Arafat, but it was truly about just designing your own controlled opposition, right? And I would imagine Hezbollah, I would imagine the Taliban, I know ISIS. I mean, all these groups are propped up creations.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to have an enemy. So we have to have Russia be our bad guy. We have to have China be our bad guy.
Yes.
Right. It's unbelievable. It's amazing to me that we've gone this far. We didn't need to have. And look at Switzerland. How many enemies does Switzerland have? They're doing just fine.
I know. You got to have an enemy, though. The enemy and the fear provoke the losing of liberty, and people will be willing to give up their liberty stupidly in the case of fear. So if you keep us fear,
fear actually triggers a response in women.
Yeah.
And you know what you do? You buy stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Good old Amazon. Yes, that is true, though. You do. You buy stuff. So that is very, very true.
Absolutely. So, and men do men do other stuff. But for the most part, if you have a high stress environment, the first outlet for women is to buy something to help them relax, get control, and feel better about it.
So true.
Yeah.
So, all right. So here's a question for you, Greg. So I'm looking at this very strange timing of Iran. I'm looking at the weirdness of all of my alt-right conservative media, which I will point out if I see something that's crazy. I'm one of the few, by the way. People won't do it. So
and then they pick on you.
Oh, they do. They censor me, and and I'm talking about all the big guns, all the big shows. So right now they're going up against Trump. Everything is always being made to be about Trump. You'll never see a show on the right ever say that both medias are owned. You'll never see that. They'll always, so right now is this big thing about let's debate Trump and let's debate his mind and let's debate what he's doing. I debate the timing of all of this because I feel like they're going to string it out. I feel like the Ukraine-Russia war is a huge lie. They're rebuilding that country. Even the people that live there are like, well, we're just doing a lot of rebuilding over here. I don't see a war, but I see a lot of rebuilding. So lots of cash being done by BlackRock. So in the event of all of this, what comes next this year, do you think? Seeing all these pieces and seeing this drawn out thing in Iran and knowing that there are plans from the 1940s to absorb all of those lands. And this is why 9/11 brought us into a war with Iraq when there was nothing going on there that had to do with 9/11. But
what?
You know what I mean? So
I'm shocked. I'm surprised.
I'm in shock and awe. So, but we're so angry, we'll do anything. So the one thing that I have said that will happen, and I want to get your take, is that we will have a giant false flag. So we go to war when there's a giant false flag blamed on the Middle East. Pick a country. I pick Iran. They'll blame it on them. The people will be stupid enough and idiots enough to believe it. We'll never question it, even though false flags have been occurring for years and years and years. Go back to Project Northwoods and you can get a healthy dose of what a false flag, how they design them. Project Northwoods, 1962. And so in the event of that.
It would have worked too.
It would have. We would have been brought into war with Cuba based on things that the CIA was going to do and carry out via the deep state. I should always say via the deep state because the CIA is just they're the henchmen for the deep state. So looking at the future, now we've got this ongoing thing with Iran. We have the rebuilding into a smart country in Ukraine. We have a lot of things happening that are giant lies. We have a lot of money laundering. I'm going to say NASA, but no one's going to agree, or people aren't going to agree. But there's lots of money laundering going on. So what happens the rest of this year? What is the game, do you think, that's being played? What is the result of the game? Where are they going with all of this?
The game, the result of the game is wealth transfer. If you think about anything you do today, there is a fee to everything you do because everything's linked through your bank. Everything has a 2% or 1% or a 5% fee.
Right.
And it's no question that the Fed, the central bank, is designed as a model of the Bank of England. And I got to go back to England again, but we designed our Fed in that same way. And even the proposal that was rejected before the Fed was accepted was a model of the Bank of England. We are stripping people's wealth. We are creating a daily dependency of people. The World Economic Forum said you're going to own nothing and you're going to be happy. And they mean it, right? You own your music anymore? No, you stream everything.
Well, what brings us to that? Crappy economy. If you have a crappy economy, you start renting everything instead of owning anything, right? Because you can't own anything. Right.
And that is the hidden tax of poverty. Because everything costs more for somebody who's in poverty, because you can't get any long-term, or you can't purchase in bulk. You have to buy piecemeal everything, so everything costs more,
right? Because
you can't afford to buy in bulk or do something of substance. And it's I think it's pretty demonic what's happening in mass. And only to the countries that can afford it. The ones that are already destitute are being used to move money from one place to another. Really, who in Ethiopia actually ever got a sandwich out of somebody in the States? Nobody. Went to the leadership, it went to the military, it went everywhere other than to the people, and they'll never get it. But I think what you're going to see is going to start this summer. You're going to see tremendous protests. You're going to see them all over the place, right? Crowdsondemand.com.
Bot or organic, because we have so many bot.
Okay. Right, crowdsondemand.com. Go there, get yourself a crowd. You can rent them for a day.
Go get paid $20 an hour. It's ridiculous. Oh
You
gosh.
can you can go to one of the, I forget which Soros site it was, but
Yeah.
you can go there and request a crowd for your
Oh, yeah.
cause.
Yeah, it's easy
Right?
to
It's too easy.
a lot of willing
Too easy.
people. Mhm.
So you're going to see a lot of that this
Yes.
summer, and unfortunately, I think you're going to see a very bloody summer on top of it. We're going to see something like the summer of '68. I think it's going to be really ugly.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch. What happens with Iran? Is this an ongoing thing? Because I remember all these so-called experts got on and said Ukraine and Russia will be over in a matter of weeks. Same people that are saying this would be over in a matter of weeks, but I don't. I think they're getting a lot of mileage out of this and a really crappy economy that makes you rent. So and puts us in smaller spaces, which is by design 2030. So what do you think?
Well, I think if NATO would stop instigating, the war in Ukraine would be over a long time ago. They've lost cause. They don't have a cause since the wall came down. What is NATO going to do? Russia asked to join NATO, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And Putin was like, no, I really seriously want to join NATO. Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. You know what? And then we're going to go back and violate everything we said we weren't going to do. So I think NATO has to stop being an instigator. Number one, that'll put an end to a whole bunch of stuff in Ukraine. Number two, Iran. I think Iran's going to come out of this and be an ally of the United States in the future. I think that's where we're going again, like we used to be. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of common causes, a lot of common interests with the Iranian people.
Right.
And I don't believe that Trump, at least in the short term, is going to allow the UK to get back on the inside of this and start dictating terms again.
So if let's say we completely control Iran's government, what's the game then? So we're doing the bidding of Israel. If Israel owns us and we basically run Iran, or let's say the powers that be run all three. Okay. So what's the game? What does Israel do now? Because there was a big, huge, headline is Israel sabotaging the ceasefire. And then we have all these theatrics playing out. So what do you think is the game there?
Is Israel sabotaging the ceasefire again?
So
the story of their life.
You're right.
I could see them doing that. I could see them using black propaganda to create a disturbance in the force. And to have the ceasefire called off. I could absolutely see that. They've done it before, and they'll do it again. I think that, with Netanyahu calling out Trump and saying, hey, no, don't stop bombing them. And Trump said, no, we got an agreement in place. Really sent chills down Netanyahu's spine because he's not as in control as he thought he was, at least for that moment.
I asked Ron Paul, I said, so does Israel have a deep state? or are they a deep state? He goes, they are a deep state.
I was going to say that the whole thing's a deep state.
Because there's three ways to look at Israel, has a deep state, is a deep state, or doesn't have a deep state at all. And those idiots I have a hard time even talking to because everything's been penetrated. But so it's very interesting, Israel and us right now.
Israel, the whole country is a deep state. Everything that's done is controlled, managed. They have such well-coordinated propaganda and deception programs that are running 24/7. It is unbelievable. I stand back in awe of some of their capabilities sometimes because they are so coordinated, so advanced in what they can do, not just in the narrative, but on the technical side. They're very manipulative.
Yeah. Don't you find it interesting that with all these so-called terrorist groups, we've never had anyone grab a nuke and nuke a city?
Isn't that amazing?
I find that compelling.
Isn't that amazing? I remember after the wall came down, we got to find the nukes. We got to find the nukes. And then within a matter of weeks, we're like, the nukes are fine.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, how did that happen so fast?
So do you expect a false flag in this country to bring us into war? But when? Like, what would probably serve their interests the best? Because obviously the war budget's being raised. Obviously it's going to happen at some point. And if you read scripture, you know it happens. I know that a lot of people think it's happening tomorrow, which I don't agree with. Everything always takes a little more time to get people on board. And here the deep state manipulates our emotions to get into war. Always has been this way. So what do you think?
Right. You have to prep a population that's not going to, because you still need soldiers, right?
Yeah.
And if they're not going to all die tomorrow, you got to prep them for what's going to happen.
Yes.
So I like to use this example. I use this example a couple times before. Back during World War I, when Wilson said, I'm not going to go to war, there is no way.
Yeah.
I did not have war with that country, right? That whole thing. So he basically got into a situation where it was us either going with England or us going with Germany. We were literally on the fence. And then what happened? The Lusitania got hit by a German U-boat. And at that very point, that's when we said, oh my gosh, they attacked our vessel and we have to do something about it. And then Wilson started to mobilize assets. And he created a strategic office that handled propaganda that was directed against American citizens.
But we covered up the Lusitania.
And the Lusitania was covered up pretty well still. Yeah. And we had these people come out, and they were sports figures. They were community leaders, business leaders. They were called the 4-Minute Men. Okay. Now, these 4-Minute Men would go to the movie houses, and if you remember back, you're too young, but back in the day when I was, in my 30s, you would have movies shown on a reel, and it would be on a movie projector.
Okay.
And after you finish the movie, you take it off. It takes 4 minutes from the movie finishing, taking it off, rewinding it, and putting a new one on and threading it through and starting again. So these guys would come up and say, hey, this is why we want to go to war. And it was positioned as an organic movement of people just coming up and wanting to do this. So basically, it looked like it was American people standing up and saying, hey, we have to go after those Germans because they're horrible people, and all the other bad words that they used and stuff like that, the Hun and blah blah blah. But it literally was a coordinated propaganda effort that Wilson blessed off and ran out of the executive office, and it was directed against American people. So if it happened before, it can happen again.
Yes. Remember Lookout Mountain, how they use that for propaganda films, and maybe a lot more that we don't realize. I'm just going to throw that out there. Lookout Mountain, very interesting. Jared Leto owns it now, always in the hands of some Hollywoodite.
Some very interesting person always has it.
Somebody also wanted to know about Mount Weather in Virginia.
Mount Weather. Oh gosh, that's the DHS office. So that's a continuity of government site that's run by the Department of Helpless Security. And
security. What did you think? What did you think about the theatrics around Nome? Like, what did you think about Kristi Noem and the things that the reasons we were given? There were a lot of experts trying to come on my show to give me the exact same reason, and that was because she did some ads they didn't like, which I didn't believe at all. But what were your thoughts?
No. There's always something interesting happening inside Washington that doesn't really make the news. Unfortunately, all I can do is speculate on something like that right now.
I know.
Unfortunately, I don't really know it. I was in the NED down here in DC, and if you don't know the NED is a private DC club where you pay $5,000 a year to go in. Then you pay for your drinks, and if you get invited to the whatever the founders level or something, you pay $100,000 to join.
Interesting.
So I got asked to come into this and sit down and have a drink and talk, about stuff. And I'm listening to people talk, and they're talking about her just before she gets the boot.
Interesting.
And they were talking about her being independent, having a independent avenue of what the president wanted to do. They weren't sure what was going to happen. That's the only thing that I could say that I know about on the inside that might have been the reason. but I don't know any other dirt.
Yeah, interesting.
And I'll never be back in the net again.
Yeah, you haven't gotten to the level where they wear the masks and have the ceremonies, I guess. So, all of government just makes you want to scream. It's just so disgusting. So
horrible thought. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So what do you want people to know? I mean, the latest, the things that you've learned that, because I know we're coming up on time, but tell me what some of the latest things are that you wish people understood or knew about what was happening behind the scenes or whatever.
I wish more people would be humble in their own understanding of the world and accept the fact that I was hoping that, everybody was a constitutional expert for a long time. Mm-hmm. Everybody was a COVID expert everybody became an epidemiologist overnight. Mm-hmm. It's like my doctorate didn't hold any water to somebody who watched a 5-minute YouTube video on epidemiology.
Okay, but you have to admit our doctors were told what to do, and it was hard.
Oh well, those guys were. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm agreeing with them.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think that people need to practice critical ignoring of too much information, too much useless information. Mm-hmm. One of the most useful deception techniques is ambiguity increasing. You have ambiguity decreasing and then increasing. And ambiguity increasing is where numerous targets pop up and you can't figure out which one's the right one or which is the nugget of truth in that sea of junk.
Yes.
And so to be able to filter that, you have to protect your mind, cognitive security, I would call it. Mm-hmm. And it's not just watching something on TV and knowing that it's a lie or listening to something on the radio and knowing it's the truth. You literally have to go through the process and tell yourself, okay, I know nothing about this topic. You mm-hmm. have to convince yourself of that at first to be objective in what you're going to learn. I wouldn't have the views that I had today mm-hmm. if I hadn't been inside the government doing some really crazy stuff and knowing what the truth really was.
Interesting.
I might be swayed other ways, and it would be hard for me to accept the fact that I was wrong about something. Mm-hmm. We need to be able to have an open conversation, and if we can't have that open conversation, then we'll never have good understanding. We'll never have awareness. So I think the things that are important are for folks to really take a step back and absolutely make sure that you're humble enough to say, I may not be right.
Very, very true. Over the 16 years I've been doing this, boy, I look back to when I started. Wow. So, it took a lot of understanding and researching and looking at history and things like that. And even today, I'm not a right 100% of the time. I would never claim to be, but I do have better instincts about the deep state now than I ever have. But I didn't understand. I was very much, when I was hired for radio, the only stipulation, and people have a hard time understanding this, but the only question I was asked by a station manager hiring me was, do you listen to Fox News? And I was like, yeah, because at the time I did. And I actually believed it was conservative and CNN was liberal, and that's not true. It's all the same owners. Right. But that was the only question I was asked. And so when I started on this path, I found out very quickly that number one, they did not want me educated. Number two, I was there to only kiss the asses of politicians. Number three, there was certain things that once I started studying too much, it was a problem for the people that hired me. It was an issue because I knew I was starting to find out too much, and that's a threat because mm-hmm. you can't say those things even in conservative talk, right? So can't say the truth. You have to go with what's appropriately said by the other hosts too. Like everybody has to be in concert and unity. So it's a great lesson for us because most people don't realize the stuff they're hearing is because, and if it's still on the radio and still on TV, you're probably getting sold a lot of boxes of rocks. In New York, they sell you a stereo and you walk off with the box of rocks, at the same weight. Mm-hmm. same kind of box of rocks. They just don't realize it. And so we have to discern and think for ourselves and understand and do research and be willing to go, oh my gosh, I was wrong about that. I was
Trust
so
your sources. Yeah, validate your sources.
Yeah.
Go look at who wrote that research paper and see who funded them, and look at who funds the people that funds those people.
Yes, and who funds your hosts, your radio hosts, and how do they make money and everything else. So
you would be amazed.
Oh my gosh, people would be amazed. On the right, as much as the left. See, we always complain about the left, but the right has its own set of problems too. So big problems. But anything else?
Anytime you have two sides to an issue, you have a manufactured issue. If you have Republicans versus Democrats, it's manufactured. If you have right versus left, it's Democrat. It's manufactured. There is no issue that is so clear cut that, I mean, we deal with like economies and countries and stuff like that, that type of stuff. Right. I mean, God, that's different. But anything that we talk about here related to the economy, sociology, behaviors, things like that.
Okay. So
all manufactured. That's a deception technique. It's like the 5th or 6th most common one of just distilling things down to 1 or 0.
Okay. So let's give somebody a practical view of that real quick before we go. So give me the propaganda of Iran, the two sides of Iran, the truth of Iran.
The propaganda of Iran.
We're there right now.
Sure. Okay. The propaganda of Iran is basically that they're bad people. They're aligned with China and North Korea, and North Carolina too. Probably watch out for those guys.
Yeah.
Right. Because they do bad things and they hate you and they're going to kill you. In reality, Iran has been working with the Brits since 1979 behind the scenes, working oil deals and running like $1 million businesses through the Bank of England. That's reality. It's not that's not even up for debate.
Right.
So they have this public persona that they pretend, and they have their guys that are playing their part, Hezbollah, and they're all playing their part. And you just have to realize that, you're on stage with everybody else. You just don't realize you're on stage.
So the theater production of world politics. Everyone plays a part. There's an arc in the story. There's always the martyr. There's the bad guy. There's the good guy, right? So whenever that's painted that way, right? So, okay. And then about regions, turning the USA into a region, which is never talked about on the right or the left because it's a topic they can't, because they don't want to make people very aware of this. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you can't undermine American imperialism is something that started 100 and something years ago, and we still push forward with that. We still do that passively here and there, and we have more active where we do it, like with the CIA, overturning governments. Gosh, I don't trust Wikipedia much, but for goodness sakes, go to Wikipedia and look at the number of elections that the CIA manipulated, that they're admitted to. Good Lord, they control everything. So there is an active imperialism and there's passive imperialism, and we still do that. If we tell people that we are no longer the world power, we are no longer that one standing giant in the world, people start to lose faith in the system. You can't have them lose faith in the system, so you have to ease them into a regional power position, as opposed to where we're at now as the sole superpower. It's always about controlling the population and taking their wealth away and controlling them like that, and making them dependent on the system is something that allows, I won't say leadership, I'll say people, to control other people. And that's what it's always been about. Go back 1,000 years, 2,000 years, you see the same thing. People like to control other people, and they do it one way or another. Ours is a passive slavery. Because you're locked into a system that you can't get out. Try to change your bank. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I dare you. You got your insurance through there. You got your home mortgage through there. You got your banking through. You're locked in with them. How many people have changed a bank in the last 10, 15 years? Nobody.
That's true.
Yeah.
When do you think we move to digital currency? I mean, not just digital currency, but digital ID, digital everything, the loss of cash, the loss of anonymity. When do you think that finally happens? Because I know that's the goal. It's one of their big, huge
That's a control step. Yeah, it's a control step, and it also makes every single one of your transactions in life manageable by somebody else.
Yes, very controlled. So when do you think that happens?
So
I know you don't have well, but
yeah, I'll share another with you. I was in one of the bio facilities that I was in, and they were growing bodies in there.
What?
And growing bodies.
They were growing bodies?
Bodies, not just body parts. This was 18 years ago or so.
What?
Full bodies, right?
Okay.
We had the technology. AI's been around since 56.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cell phones since the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
The government is so far ahead. We were looking at AI capable programs in 2006 that run circles around Claude or OpenAI today.
Mm-hmm.
And people think that these are great. These things are nothing.
So Peter
You're
Better
already controlled.
Do you feel Peter Better was right when he was giving the documents?
Yes.
The guy that worked for JFK when he came out with his documents.
Yeah, totally.
Interesting.
Totally. Yeah, you're already compromised. You're already in a position where you will not come out on top in the functional physical realm that we have here.
What were you told the bodies were for?
The body? Oh, they're for biomedical testing, of course, which is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can grow, you're allowed to grow parts that you can test, and that's not considered a violation of human rights, right? It's not a person per se. The bodies were actually created from non-living amino acids, and were developed and put together in the lab as DNA formed, RNA and DNA formed in a controlled environment. So different things were added to it, and I'm oversimplifying it a gazillion times because I don't want to get into a bogged down discussion about it. But the bodies were grown for human experimentation, but also, and I can't think of the name of the movie, but there's a movie where rich people take the bodies of young people, and their consciousness is transferred to the young person as they get older, and the young person's consciousness is thrown out. Right?
They never die. They play God and never die.
Right. So this is part of that eugenics model where you kill younger, you destroy the life of the younger to serve the rich group and the elite group. It was frightening to me. I was terrified when I saw it, and it changes the way you think about life.
So one thing I noticed about the CIA and about all the intelligence agencies being directed by the deep state, that when they got into control and were given unlimited resources and absolutely no rules, back in the late 40s and 50s, the first thing that they embarked on was experimentation, mentally, physically. It was all about experimentation to me. And that's also what the Nazi scientists were also doing. It was experimentation, right, on all those subjects. And so it was always about that and never truly about anything foreign other than color revolutions, other than putting in puppetry. It had nothing to do with ever keeping us safe as a country. It was sold that way, but it was all about experimentation. Every single thing they did was about experimentation and psychology. Which would make that statement that you just made about the experimentation so early on where we never really recognized it was going on. Because to this day, people think some experiments went on in Louisiana at Tulane University. Some experiments happened here and there. Dr. Mary's Monkey, that book, we've got, and I love that book, explains a lot. But it doesn't really explain everything, because that was pretty much the sole mission, was it not? To develop what we're in now and what we're seeing now come of all of this? I don't know. I'm just asking for a friend.
Yeah, that's
for a friend.
Oh boy, that's a tough. It's again, you don't, you look at it and not knowing what you don't know. You're free to live your life in ignorance. You have
Right. Just piecing the pieces together, because it just seemed like it was a super big deal. The experimentation, psychology, experimentation, finding out how we work and tick. So to make us into, a digital twin or digital copy of ourselves or whatever the case may be, that just seemed like it was a very long game for figuring us out. They had to have some sort of no rules attached to doing that. Yes.
You have to get to the point where you say, I'm no longer comfortable in the ignorance that I live in. And I want to really understand what's happening. So you can look at all the MK Ultra experiments that happened, and us saying that the Russian stuff that the Russians didn't work, and the Russians saying, no, our stuff worked. And then we go forward and we look at what happened in Havana, and we look at what happened in Moscow. And we can see that, well, gosh, that stuff does work. If you place something at, I think it's 60 hertz from across the room, you'll actually, and done experiments with this, you can play music 60 hertz. And you can direct it at someone, and it'll play inside your head, and nobody else will hear it.
Yes, that capability is a big one for the future, especially Project Bluebeam. Yes,
huge,
amazing,
huge. So we've had these capabilities for a long time. So when somebody says, I don't know, like the Unabomber, like I heard voices in my head.
Yes.
I don't doubt it. Probably true, because you were up at MIT, you were part of the experiments.
Yeah. I know some people that were part of the San Francisco hippie movement LSD experiments.
The whole
different thing. But that, the takeover of music in the 60s, I've done a lot of shows about Dylan, his fake name, and the Beatles, and the creation, production of the Beatles. That was a CIA production. And you've got all these different acts, these music acts, and the changing of the hertz and how it's affected us in the future. And a lot of experimentation going on, being produced to experiment on us without our knowledge, and us buying into a completely different realm of reality about it.
Oh, absolutely. You look at the music that's played now, and you sit there and go, gosh, where'd the storytelling go? If you're innocent about it, you're like, we used to have stories in music, Jim Croce, or you had something where you had something going on, and at least you could follow a story. And now it's just like,
you know what? It's like
it's just going on and on.
It's like being in a rave all the time. And the thing is music didn't change much. If you really look at the changes in each decade, it didn't change much until the 1950s. Until the 1950s, you had a lot of orchestra, you had a lot of just basic, sweet music. And then you got to this point where they changed the hertz, and it became a completely different paradigm. And honestly, you can't get into the music business unless you're a production now. We went from even bands to solo acts, because I think they're easier to control. But you have a lot of little assets running around that don't know they're assets, that are stars today, right? So
like I said, you're part of the play, and you don't know you're part of the play. You're just there getting a check.
Gosh. So do most of our government, from the administration on down, because this show doesn't cater to tribes. So if you're in a tribe and you want me to be tribal, I'm not going to be tribal. So it just doesn't work that way anymore. So as far as the tribes go, how much of government doesn't even know they're in a play, doesn't even know they're part of a theater going on?
Give or take, I'd say 99.8%.
Yeah. Okay. I thought
they just think they're running something. They're doing a good job. They're doing their best job. It's funny, because this is actually this dives into the book on the Constitution that I wrote, actually, because I took a look at the Constitution and said, what happened to the Constitution? How did we get to where we're at now from where we started at?
Exactly.
And I looked at Patrick Henry's comment about designing men. And he didn't want this, he had a fear that designing men would become involved with the Constitution itself. And what is a designing man? A designing man is someone who is brought up by the system and ends up protecting the system against the founding documents and against the people. That's what a designing man was. So I looked at the sociological the psychological and the behavioral impacts of being in America and being brought up under the Constitution, and how that forced changes to the Constitution itself.
Yeah.
And gave us what we have now, which is why we're at the crossroads of insanity versus psychotic behavior anymore, I guess, of what we're doing. And back to your first comment that we had, the amazing and lovely Suzanne Sherman actually wrote the foreword to my book.
I know. That's awesome. I love Suzanne. She's a fighter. I love her. Yeah, she's great.
But that's what it's about. It's about the psychological shift, the sociological functions that follow that psychological shift in the individual. So if you look at the individual, the community, and the sociological function of America per se, you can see how it was what do I want to say? It was a transformation that happened in increments, but it happened in bunches. So the Marshall Court, the first ones to identify and say, well, judicial review. Well, why do you have to have judicial review? Well, you have to validate the court system somehow and give them a power other than what they were designed to do, which was just to say yes or no in a very few cases. So the belief of the importance, their own importance, is the thing that drove them to the point of increasing the powers of the court systems themselves. And now it's obviously, out of control. You get things like Wickard versus Filburn, where a guy's growing vegetables and grain on his own property for his own animals, and they cite him for an interstate commerce violation. Well, how the heck do you do that?
I know.
Those are my animals. That's my grain. What do you mean interstate commerce?
We have heavy federal control that does that, built up over the years, and legal system that doesn't question that.
Right. And the legal system that actually mandated that to be the only outcome.
Yes.
That was
by the legal system. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you knew that, Percy versus Ferguson, 1896, where it's separate but equal, was the correct constitutional interpretation. But then Brown versus the Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas, comes in 1956, and the whole thing's turned up on end. Well, that was enabled by the Marshall Court. So, we have to live with the designing men who are creating their own reality, because you go into any government office now, and the first thing you see is bureaucracy. And they're all fighting, and they have their own little fiefdoms, and they're all dividing out how they're going to control or take over somebody else's office.
Yeah.
It's the feudal system all over again.
Yeah.
And this is what we call federal civil service. If you're a civil servant, you should, if you're serving civilly, you're serving. That doesn't mean you get paid.
Right.
I say we cut off all their pay.
Yeah. They built bureaucracy so they could always have a scapegoat to never having done anything right.
You got a good question up here. How do I like George Mason? I love George Mason.
Do you?
Yeah, I just wish he was not so old and he could have fought a little bit harder and better during the ratification debates. He was very instrumental with him and Patrick Henry and Randolph during the Virginia ratification debates. I bring up a lot of information about them in my book, as a matter of fact.
So when
and how they've fought against the 2 weeks.
Okay. Title?
I don't know.
Whatever.
I threw a couple of ideas around. Suzanne was
just put something sexually salacious. It'll get everyone's attention. They'll at least open the cover. At this point, if it says Constitution, people just turn a blind eye. They don't want to.
Oh, here it is. So far we call it the nation that had to be built, design, loyalty, and the end of conditional union.
Ooh, okay. Well, all right. Yeah.
And I have more than one resource.
Okay. I like that.
I went a lot into the ratification debates in Virginia and New York, and then the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers, which I noticed a lot of people don't like to do.
Yeah, so important to read. So important to read. You'll never hear anyone in government talk about it, or talk show hosts of any kind, conservative or not. They will not hardly mention the Federalist Papers, Anti-Federalist Papers. And that's the most important read to understanding the Constitution.
Designing men. That's what they've become.
Yes.
They're all designing men.
Here's your ultimate question as we bow out. So, Constitution, it's hanging by a thread to say the least, but it is still in play. They are still afraid of people understanding or reading it. It's not in Chinese, so therefore everyone can understand it. You don't need an interpreter. You don't need
not in Spanish though, so you got that.
You don't need a lawyer interpreter. People don't need to interpret it for us. It's very simple to read. So what is your take? Can you get it back at this point? Because I don't have any faith in government anymore after seeing all the way down to local what happens, the lying, the scumbaggery. I don't. All my hope is in people and God, nothing in government. Government will not save us at this point. But you might disagree. And what about the Constitution and who and how do we restore that, and can it be restored?
I absolutely do not disagree with you.
Great.
That makes for terrible radio. Doggone it.
Perfect.
No, I think, and I even address it in the book.
Yeah.
I believe that the design of the Constitution left too many loopholes, and that it wasn't locked down enough for manipulative people to exploit it. And in doing so, it's the wheels have come off the cart pretty much. And we don't use the amendment process, right? We just legislate stuff, or we tell a judge to amend the Constitution now. That's what we've been doing for years, decades, a couple centuries now. We're past the point of trying to fix it. I really believe that we need to go back to the drawing board. Take this with you. Take the Articles of Confederation with you. Take things that you can reference and say, okay,
right.
What does make sense? How can we lock this down? Shoot, I'm going to say it. Use AI to create a constitution, because that's what people want. They want something that, they want something that's going to be. Because people like technology. You know?
Oh, I know. And AI is such a liar, and I've noticed it. I've
I
looked
hate it.
stuff up, and it literally leaves stuff out. That's the most important part of what you're trying to research. I mean, it is worse than propaganda, smiley faced, and alt-right media. Everything, right? It's even worse than that, and I don't think people have actually realized that.
I've asked the questions before. I said, hey. What kitchen cleaners can I mix together to make chloramine? Oh, I can't tell you that because it's dangerous and it's going to kill people. Oh gosh!
Like I didn't ask you to be my mama. I just wanted a recipe.
So I went back and I was like, okay, what kitchen cleaners should I avoid mixing together so I don't hurt anyone? Well, you don't want to mix bleach and ammonia. That makes chloramine.
Well, there you go. You just have to know the back door. So I think that government has been heavily infiltrated. I noticed it on a local level when we had people come into this area that were pretend patriots, and they decided to wear the flag shirt and show up as a patriot, but they weren't that at all. And so it's a huge bait and switch that is going on in every county in America right now. And so this is why nothing is getting changed, nothing's getting done. Nothing's getting done in the way of giving us back our liberty at all. No measures are being taken. We just have scapegoats, excuses, and pretend patriots at the pulpit. And so I think a lot of these people are assets. I remember an article even a long time ago, probably a decade ago, maybe even 5 years ago, talking about how infiltrated and how many people are trained in the government to kind of walk among us as regular folk that are heavily trained to be in this position of being a bait and switch asset pretender. And my community is full of them. And so I would love to know what your thoughts on that are, because I feel like they even said at the time there was 1 million. So if they're saying 1 million, then you'd have to probably times that by 100 at least. Because
so go back to a couple of years ago, and you and I sat and we chatted delightfully and big smiles and everything. We talked about Jade Helm.
Yes. Oh my gosh, the Jade Helm shows. Yes. I even called the Army office. Okay. And I even had it recorded. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what were they doing? They were putting people into the community so that they could function in the community and not be noticed.
Yep.
So when you're training for it, you can do it, right?
Making
and
tabs, taking tabs on people and businesses and what people are discussing.
Absolutely, up close and personal. And then I think that there's another thing too that I like to think about patriotism as someone who protects them and their neighbors against the government.
Yes.
And a nationalist is someone who protects the government. And I think that we have a lot of people that misunderstand the concepts of those. I did back when I was doing radio shows, I did a show on Francis Bellamy, and I had his own, in his own words, an article that he was interviewed for about how he wrote and why he wrote the Declaration of Independence. Not the Declaration. Gosh darn it! Holy cow! The Pledge of Allegiance. See, when you get old, these things happen.
Yeah.
Why he wrote the Pledge of Allegiance and how he did it and what his target was. And being a National Socialist that he was, he had a goal. And it turned out his goal was capitalism, because he worked for a company in Boston that was selling American flags. And if you had enough kids that, would put in a dime or so, they'd send you a flag, you put the flag up, and then all the kids together on the 400th anniversary of Columbus discovering America would say the pledge to the flag. And it would be a great big, and we created what had been lost in the Civil War. We recreated what was lost in the Civil War, which was the concept of nationalism, as opposed to patriotism, which we had prior to the Civil War. So now we run everything in a nationalist concept, which is why the Army Reserve and the National Guard can be federalized, as opposed to when they couldn't. And that happened during the Progressive era, back when you got income tax and you got a whole bunch of other problems, the Federal Reserve.
So would it be fair to say that patriotism is love for the country, the foundation it was built on, and standing for that truth against somebody trying to harm that? You would be very patriotic to your country. And nationalism gets confused because nationalism is pretty much a whatever our country does, we're behind it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, nail on the head. You got it.
Okay.
A nationalist will defend his government or her government or the country, the government of that country.
No matter what it does, even if it
no
defiles
matter what it does.
Okay.
That's right. A patriot will defend their neighbors, their friends, the ideals, the values, the morals, the beliefs that you were founded on and that you live under collectively as a community.
So one of the problems I see, and especially when you brought up the Pledge of Allegiance, I played a Red Skeleton. You've seen the Red Skeleton clip about the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, Red Skeleton, sure.
Yeah. And it's a great clip talking about the love for country, right? And I think what people get confused is it was written as a socialist measure of where they, like you said, what they were targeting it for. When people want the kids to recite that today, I don't think it's a negative. I almost think it's more of look, this talks about respect for the country. So we like respect. So when the kids say that, it gives us this resounding level of, see, they respect our country. There's a respect there. And I do appreciate respect for the country, because the leftists are out to take out the baby and the bathwater, right? It's annihilate the country. The leftists love to annihilate the whole thing, right? And us on the right, we're saying respect the founding, respect the Constitution. And I think when we hear that, because I know a lot of libertarians have a hard time with it, and I understand why. But at the same time, we're looking at it like it's a measure of respect. I think it's all in perspective of how you view it. But I think if it was even something else, it could be, because it just needs to be. We want to see kids have a healthy respect for the Constitution. Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Bring that back.
No, that's great. And so the Red Skeleton recital that you're talking about was done specifically at the time when Congress was looking at taking all mention of God out of schools, taking Bible readings out of schools and things like that. And that's why Congress went in and added that part under God into the Pledge to the Flag, which I thought was just a brilliant move.
I love that. Yeah, it's great.
That alone, for me, makes it worth it, because now we've correctly identified. It went from something which was an oath of allegiance to an inanimate object, even though it's the representation of the country through the flag. And our relationship to our flag is a little different than other countries, just because of how it was formed and how it was forged.
Right.
So yeah, no, totally get that. But I think that when they added "under God" into the pledge, boy, they hit the nail on the head with that. And that's what really, really makes it alive for me and makes it worth it for me.
So did they initially create it then, because it's obviously the United States of America pledge, you know, so it was to maybe root out a little bit more of the states' rights in favor of federal control?
It was actually designed. I'll send you the article from Harper's Weekly, 1923, I think it was, that I actually got a copy of it. Basically, he was looking to reinvigorate nationalism in the country, because there was a feeling of decline after the Civil War, because there was reconciliation between the North and South.
Right.
So, and it was going back, like you were saying, back towards a states' rights and state autonomy scenario.
Yes.
That he thought it was, he thought it was abhorrent.
The real reason of the Civil War was not about slavery. Oh, our youth believe that.
True.
They believe it's all about slavery. It was not. It was not fought for slavery. It was fought about state rights and money, profit.
Money. Interesting point about the Civil Wars. Connecticut, Massachusetts specifically, New York, and I think New Jersey too. Before they wrote laws on emancipation, those laws were moving through the legislature. The people who had money had the slaves, and they were involved with the legislature, so they knew what was going on. They took, it's like insider trading, they took all their slaves and they sold them to the South.
Right.
Before they freed the slaves. Not all, but a vast majority of them, were sold into slavery in the South before they would have been freed. So there was a return on investment for the people in the North. Then they come in, they hire the Irish, because they're paying the Irish less than what it would take to feed and house a slave. They're paying the Irish less than that.
Right.
So it created this.
Never gets talked about. Never gets talked about. Everything gets shoved off into Harriet Tubman, even movies made about it. She was only at the last 15 years of a 70-year thing.
God.
Of freeing the slaves, and a mindset that was going to take a long time. But from the start of the country, 70 years, she was on that last 15 years and only got out about 50 people, but they make it all about her, because it was the white Quaker congregations that actually freed the slaves and created the railroad. The slaves couldn't do it. They were bound to the farms. It had to be the white Quakers doing it, but never gets talked about in history ever. I've done whole shows on that.
Joseph Carpenter.
Yeah.
Up in New York, my ancestor was one of the stops on the Underground Railroad.
Right?
Yeah, it was incredible learning about that. They were Quakers, so
yes, we were very lucky to forge that mindset in just 70 years. And but we get painted as the country of slavery, which is amazing, because the whole world's been doing it. Like you said, the Irish were products of that, and so many different nationalities, and most every people has been a product of slavery. So it was a mindset that had to be ended, but we sure get the blame. Boy, there's still over a million slaves in Africa today. And Saudi Arabia has a couple 100,000 just alone by themselves. Right. It's selective outrage is what it is. Yes. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for coming on. And I hope you'll come on in a few weeks. We'll do this again.
If you say so, I'll be here. Yes, boss lady.
Thank you so much, Greg Carpenter. And let us know what the title of the book is in a couple of weeks. We'll run and get it. And then, of course, really appreciate Reverse Deception is the book that he wrote as well, that put him on my radar a decade ago. And I really appreciate that. And so thanks, Greg. You've been great.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks,
thank you. And always a pleasure. And by the way, just wanted to mention Cardio Miracle again. Look, a delivery, a mineral system that is amazing for your system. I just want everybody to be healthy. We need all hands on deck right now, and it's really, really important. So Cardio Miracle, I've represented a lot of different products on the air, and I would have to say I wish I'd been taking this all along because it had so much more to its ingredients than any product I've ever taken. So when I say this is a good one, I'm telling you this is a good one. You know, I don't have any agenda towards any product. This one, though, has my husband and I don't go without it. I take it twice a day. Cardiomiracle.com/Kate. It helps with everything. It helps me battle what I have to do every day on a daily basis and the stress that goes along with it. And I'm telling you, it is it's one of the best products I've ever come across for nutrients, fruits, vegetables. You should have your kids drinking it. Nitric oxide delivery. It is amazing. All around amazing. Vitamin D delivery is amazing. Please go get this product. Cardiomiracle.com/Kate. I also had somebody text me and was asking me about cancer. I wrote a 14-page dialed down. This is what you need to do. This is how you go about it. If you don't want to mess with pharma, okay, I have to be super careful because of the censors. I've been censored so many times about this product. If you don't want pharma, which you know what pharma is going to tell you to do, and your white coat doctor, please, please, please go to katetalks.myshopify.com. Go get this book. Because I am telling you, there'll be a time that comes that you won't be able to get this information. It has been censored so many times by good old YouTube, which we're sitting on right now. It's why I'm always in jail. X, you name it. I have had so many problems trying to get this information out. And this is the information compiled after meeting with over 100 of the best holistic doctors in the world. Telling you what works and what doesn't. Don't go for the snake oil. Go for the things that are actually going to work. We have a lot of things that have helped us, a lot of things that are helping people right now. I know somebody that is literally getting rid of their cancer right now as we speak because they dealt with the things that I wrote about in this book. Okay. I am telling you, and it was stage 3. I'm telling you that this is the way to go. 14 pages of the most dialed in information you'll ever come across for your health. It's also preventative. If you want to prevent cancer, I would do the things in this book and take the products in this book that I talk about. And I don't get a benefit from you getting any of those products. I'm just telling you the doctors to go to, where to go, how to get help, and what to do before you even meet with somebody in the white coat side of the medical cabal, please, because their only answer is going to be chemo, which is 97% death rate. Please look at this, because I do think that we have a lot of ways that people are healing all around the world. But you know what? People, they think that cancer can only be solved one way, and it can't. There's just so many other ways to do it and get your health back. Okay. The people that die from cancer aren't actually, if you look on the report, they're not actually dying from it, the cancer. They're actually dying from all of the white coat remedies that pharma will give you. So this is a great way to deal with it. And this 14 pages is amazing. Please, the link is right on the screen, but go to katetalks.myshopify.com. Get the book for a loved one. Send it to somebody you know. Tell them it'll come to their email. Tell them to please store it on their computer. Print it out, please. So you always have this information. This information to me is life or death. So it's good information. It's what I would send people on the down low when they would ask me, hey, what would you do now that you've interviewed and done all this research? What would you say to do over 38,000 hours of research? I said, this is exactly what I would do. So this is the same stuff, the same information for the last few years that I've been giving out, and I update it all the time. So if you get it and I do an update, you'll get the update. Please go to katetalks.myshopify.com and please share this. That's how vital this important information is, because so many people out there, they get the diagnosis and they don't know what to do and they don't have time. You do not have time to take what your neighbor says to do and what your friend says to do, blah, blah, blah. You don't have time for all of that. You got to know and dial in on what's going to work. And I'm here for you. That's the only reason I gave out this information. And the only reason it's being censored is because of the truth behind it. So please, I am begging you to go and get it. katetalks.myshopify.com. Best information out there. Thank you so much. And thank you. I'm getting some comments. Love your show. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Just here for the truth. It's cost me a career, but you know what? It's worth it. I can look myself in the mirror every day. I like that. I'll take that. I'll take looking myself in the mirror every day. I'm not a media whore, I'll tell you that much. I know too many of them. Do it for the dollar. That's not who I am. So I really appreciate the support. Please share this link with people. If you enjoy this show, please share this because I need your support. And also, if you'd like to donate to the show to keep it alive and well, we are running into some major issues trying to keep the show going. So I really appreciate any help that you can give. It's important. And doing this is important. I'm willing to do it, but I'm fast losing this platform to do it. So it would really help if you help the show right now. And I really, really appreciate you. At least you'll know you've done something for free speech and actual free speech, not bought and paid for free speech. There's a difference. There's a difference, sadly. Be faithful, be fearless. Go to katedalleyradio.com for any of the things I've talked about just now. katedalleyradio.com. You can also listen to the audio on SoundCloud of the shows or get it on X, Rumble, Facebook, the Kate Dalley Show page, YouTube when I'm not in jail, and YouTube jail. And I really appreciate your support, but you got to share the show. Share that link to go to buy that ebook as well so we can get good information on health out to people. Please, I'm on a mission. I've had I know too many people that have died of cancer. So please. And appreciate you guys so much. You don't even know. Thank you. Be faithful, be fearless. Find out why I say that on katedalleyradio.com. There's a story behind that. I say it at every show. Thanks again, you guys. Share the show. See ya Tuesday.